And so the whole framework of the book is go make more money and then do more good with it. And then because you're feeling good about it, you want to make more money to feel even gooder, if that's a word. But that's the revolution. It just keeps spinning and spinning. But it turns this whole cultural issue of money is bad and flips it over and says money is not bad. It's what you do with it that counts.
When you think about that word referable, so that comes up in our industry all the time. It's something that we hear regularly. What I'm genuinely curious. Like, what is the key to becoming referable by design, not by accident?
Well, there's two things. One is counterintuitive, and they're both easy to do here. But many advisors and professionals make the mistake of waiting until the end of the client visit to ask for the referral. You've gone over all the numbers. People are slightly tired. People kind of expect to be asked for something at the end of the visit. Instead, what I find is you want to have an agenda and you want to have a micro moment on that agenda where you remind them of the benefit that you gave them. You remind them of the pain pill that you gave them to ease their pain. And in that moment when they realize that, and it might be, I wanted to take a quick moment, Rich, and you remember when you first came to us as a client, the problem that you had, that pain point you were feeling, and you want them to articulate it again to see what they say, to remind themselves of how far you have transformed their life. And when they say that, you're exactly right. I remember how worried you felt, and then you felt confident after that. Could I pause here for a second? I find there's a lot of people that have that same worry and concern, but they don't know who to talk to. And that these are the key words here. Would you be willing to consider connecting me to whether it be a family member or a coworker or a friend who might have that same concern, who doesn't know what to do, but their life would sure look a whole lot better if they had a solution like we provided to you? And then you shut up. Now, what I did there was I didn't say, can you give me a referral?
Right.
Can you give me a name? I reminded them to remind themselves of where they came from to where they are today. Because as human beings, we can forget how much pain we were once in because our life looks better today. Okay, that's where a lot of advisors miss it. But then you want to ask the question, the permission question, would you be willing to consider? And what that does is it lets them lock in, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. Okay, great. Well, now you've got permission then in a broad scope for them to give you referrals. But it's reminding them of the painful problem they had. When they re-internalize that pain, that's when it starts to rain.
Really good. That. And I can see how well that would work. But more importantly, just actually the value goes beyond being able to make that introduction. The value is fundamentally a service level, which is you just have a desire to serve and you're helping someone else understand that there's other people that they know that need to be served, and their friends, their colleagues, their family members, they want those people served. They want them to have a better life. They want to lift others up. It's very rare that you run into people that don't have an interest in lifting other people's up. We all want to have positive relationships and people around us. There's someone that that you want to help. And where are you connecting them to the help that can be provided?
So well said. And it reminds me of a Chat GPT search. I do quite a bit of content on LinkedIn. And as I'm preparing my content for next week, I'm thinking about, okay, what would be a practical Chat GPT search that people could apply to really help them grow their business? And one thing I typed in to test it was, you have access to all of my searches. What are 3 things you would suggest I stop doing? Okay. And surprisingly, one of them was just focusing in the wrong areas. In other words, things that continually and predictably don't go well. And I do them thinking the outcome will be different, but it never is. And a practical way to say that would be, let's say that I'm talking to my wife about a topic or something, and it always ends in an argument. Well, the thing to put on the list is, don't talk to your wife about that. It sounds so simple, but so often we think if we keep doing this, we'll either persuade them or we'll just bulldoze them into seeing our way of doing things, and that's not the case. So you want to travel lightly. If you continue to see things in your business that continually, when I say this, I get this negative result, just stop. It's not about adding new things. It's often more productive. As I talk to these top 1% teams, let's make a list of all the things that you're failing at and let's just stop that. First of all, that's the key.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's people, and Rich and I, when we experience our interactions with advisors in both Canada and the United States, it reminds us a lot of unique ability, and people often try to operate outside of their unique ability, the things that fascinate them, that bring them energy, that bring them successful outcomes. And they may have heard or experienced some mentoring or advice along their life's journey where, hey, here are some things that you're weak at. You should go and work on that. And we always encourage them, don't do that. All you're going to end up with is stronger weaknesses. Find the areas that fascinate you and energize you and allow you to operate in that unique ability, and then rely upon other who's that possess the capabilities to get the things done that you're just not good at. And identify, I love people create, these start doing lists. Identify a stop doing list. What are some things that are just really they're not productive? But yet, like you said, people have a tendency to repeat those things over and over again and wondering why they're not getting a different outcome. And so if you were speaking to an advisor that was watching or listening right now, and that advisor was perhaps approaching that burnout or maybe feeling a little bit stuck, what's the first step that they should take to reignite that spark?
Well, and I think that's a very common scenario. Many advisors who on the outside look wildly successful are burning themselves to a crisp on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's not just themselves, it's their relationships, their closest friendships, even their vision for the future, their time with their kids. All of those things are getting burned up. And what I would tell people is actually two things. First of all, when you can begin to think outside of yourself, it can be transformational. And this is where, as crazy as this sounds, but identify a cause that you care deeply about. Identify something that if you were to make a contribution to that, suddenly now your focus is entirely not on yourself, it's off yourself, but on helping someone else. And if you can identify that, now we're reverse engineering some happiness back into your life. Now the question becomes, okay, I wanted to do more for this cause.
We have a ton more amazing conversations and great clips just like this if you go right here. Or if you want to watch the rest of this conversation, the full episode, click right here.